With ridership down, there could be cuts coming to Windsor's bus service, but it may come at a cost to those that need it the most.
Hello, world, every boy, every gal. I'm Bozo the Clown. Yes, this is your old pal.
A Windsor, Detroit legend, Bozo the Clown, also known as Art Servy, has died at the age of 86. Many in the area are sharing their memories of watching him live in our studio. A quick look outside here as we saw the snowflakes just continue to fall, looking like a snow globe right now. Winter certainly hitting this week. Colette Kennedy has the full forecast tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. The first few days out of lockdown have regions in southwestern Ontario looking forward to vaccinations. Chatham-Kent is set on ramping up doses this week. Their health unit saying that there's hints more vaccines are on the way and they could start mass vaccinations as early as April. Jacob Barker joins us now live. Jacob, what can Chatham-Kent expect when it comes to those vaccinations in the near future?
Well, Dr. Colby said today that they are expecting more Pfizer vaccine to arrive in the region at the beginning of next week, and there is a suggestion from the province that the shipment coming the week after that could be even larger still. That's because the company is catching up on shipments it missed while it was retooling its plant in Europe. Colby says that because children under the age of 16 have not yet been approved to get the vaccine, there's between 65 and 70,000 eligible people in Chatham-Kent for the vaccine, and that if the supply permitted, they could probably vaccinate everybody that needed to be in about 10 days. Right now, the projections are that they will start having a plentiful vaccine supply starting in April and maybe even in late March. And that's not even factoring in the additional vaccine brands waiting for approval by Health Canada. He says they are preparing to begin mass vaccinations at the beginning of April and will be completed by September. But really, how quickly that happens depends on the supply they receive.
The limiting factor will be the number of vaccines that we can get in Chatham-Kent, because we are really ready to go, and our vaccination team is just chomping at the bit to get more vaccine and really show everybody what we can do.
Well, today the CEO of the Windsor-Essex Health Unit weighed in on their plans for mass vaccination as well. She says they will have things set up by April, but right now that's a moving target. Right now, Windsor Regional Hospital has the use of the Sportsplex and the old Windsor Star Building for immunizations, and 2, possibly 3 sites are being chosen in the county as well.
Now, while they're waiting for that to start, how's the situation in Chatham-Kent when it comes to the spread of the virus right now?
Well, Chris, it's a very different scene than what we've seen here in Windsor-Essex. In fact, today they saw 0 cases of the virus. Here, there were 14 new cases. Arenas will be allowed to open on Saturday and swimming pools Monday. Colby says that if these types of numbers keep up, they will likely see a relaxing of restrictions the next time the province decides on the levels for the different regions.
Our numbers in Chatham-Kent are looking very, very good right now, with the potential of jumping down 2 categories based on what our numbers are at the moment.
So the arena and the pool openings do come with restrictions. However, the changing rooms at the arenas are to remain closed, and pools can only have 10 people in them at a time. Chris?
Thanks, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker with a look at Chatham-Kent tonight. Now, here in Windsor-Essex, they've detected 2 cases of COVID-19 variants in the community, and the health unit says that there's a 3rd possible case of the variant being investigated. The initial indication, though, is that it could be a false positive. They say the case is associated with a long-term care home, and so they're investigating further to make sure that they get it right.
We do reach out to the provincial lab to help us understand with the differences and with the clinical situation added up to the exposure source and all those details based on our case interview. And then in some instances, either they go back and look at how the tests were conducted and if there was any concerns identified from a process perspective. And once that is cleared, then sometimes we go ahead and we do a repeat test on this individual just to make sure that we're not missing anything.
Now, as Barker mentioned, Windsor-Essex had 14 new cases today. The health unit also reported 9 more deaths from COVID-19. Now, 6 are from the community, all men, 1 in his 60s, 1 in his 70s, 3 men in their 80s. and a man in his 90s. Now, 3 of the deaths are from long-term care, a man in his 80s and a man and a woman in their 90s. Now, the outbreak at Windsor Regional Hospital is growing. Tonight, they say there's an outbreak on the 7 North unit at Met Campus. 5 patients, 1 staff member testing positive. That's in addition to yesterday's outbreak at the clinical teaching unit at the Olek campus. Now, the coronavirus variants have become a major concern in the fight against COVID-19. Health officials and drug companies are keeping a close watch on the mutations and are working to make sure that the vaccine will remain effective. CBC's Christine Burak has more.
Most experts are now saying this coronavirus isn't going away. A new poll found almost 90% of scientists asked think the virus will circle the globe in small pockets for years to come, which means it will continue mutating. But researchers say, unlike the flu virus, we won't necessarily need a coronavirus vaccine every year.
I do caution making too many similarities because they are very different viruses.
Experts insist this coronavirus doesn't mutate as fast or as much as the flu. Even with variants, people who've been fully vaccinated aren't becoming severely ill or dying of COVID. But in case that happens, drug makers are already reworking their vaccines.
When variants are spotted in another part of the world, pharma could react to that by generating a vaccine that would deal with that variant.
And vaccine approvals will happen faster. Studies examining second-generation vaccines will require 400 to 500 people being vaccinated. Doctors say regulators like Health Canada won't likely require large clinical trials with 40 to 50,000 people.
But they will say, can you show me that this vaccine is not inferior to this other vaccine that's already been approved?
Current vaccines show our immune system the original coronavirus spike protein. Researchers say it's activating not just antibodies, but also T cells to attack the virus. Still, vaccine maker CureVac is working on an advanced shot using the mutated spike protein now seen on variants identified in the UK, South Africa, and Brazil.
Once they've got the science and once they've got it approved, I think it'll be fairly quick to come out.
Adding it could be ready as early as this summer. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
The City of Windsor's Isolation and Recovery Centre is full. It's a hotel meant to house people who are homeless that need to isolate because of COVID-19. Windsor's mayor believes there's another option on the table, though, and it's one with space. The Red Cross Hotel used to isolate temporary foreign workers. This is the hotel that holds the solution, says Windsor's Mayor Drew Dilkins. He says the city's struggling to house people positive for COVID-19, but without a home to isolate in.
When there's space available, it's for temporary foreign workers, and we can't just move this population into that space, although it's the right thing to do.
Dilkins acknowledges the idea comes with challenges, saying there would need to be addiction supports and security measures in place. But he says the hotel, operated by the Red Cross, has the space. Now, the Red Cross says that they have ongoing discussions with government partners discussing evolving needs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, other organizations that help the homeless are struggling to offer support.
Our volunteer base used to be very much seniors who would come in and do like the housekeeping items, do laundry, sort clothes, what have you. But because they're at high risk, they can't come in anymore. So we are running on a skeleton crew. A lot of us are working 7 days a week.
Another change, Street Help usually welcomes people inside during the day. Now it's a takeout window, unable to let people inside the small space because of the pandemic. They say more and more people need help.
Increase, yeah.
Even before the pandemic, we were very, very busy.
Second Chance Ministry has helped people in precarious housing situations for over a decade, delivering furniture, dropping off critical supplies.
I delivered a love bag once to this one woman, and when she saw the maxi pads that were in there, she said, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. God bless you. I was using my socks." And like, wow. So it's, the need is very real, and I wish we could do more.
Their list of people to help, it's growing, but they're finding it harder to source donations.
It really is heartbreaking. This lockdown has taken, definitely a significant toll on folks.
The health unit today says the 2 outbreaks of the Downtown Mission and the Salvation Army are what's driving the recent rise in cases. They're working with operators to make sure the locations are safer for clients vulnerable to COVID-19.
So hopefully we will be in a better position in the next few days, with all the partners working together.
More tonight on a potential battle to maintain public transit here in Windsor. Ridership is down by 85%, which doesn't come as a surprise to many. The lockdowns kept places closed for large chunks of the last 10 months. Despite Transit Windsor running on a reduced service, the city says it can't financially keep up unless higher levels of the government step in. CBC's Tamina Aziz reports.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins says the city needs more funding, or it might have to make more cuts to bus services. While on Windsor Morning, he was asked if he thinks ridership dropped because he shut down service last year. The mayor was quick to say no.
I think if you look at what's happening at other transit systems across the country that continue to operate, we are all down by between 80 and 90%. So in our case, ridership has fallen by approximately 85% here in Windsor. And so our numbers are quite consistent with what we see in other transit systems across Canada.
I don't know that we necessarily needed to suspend the service. And I'm publicly and I am on record stating clearly that I disagreed with the shutdown of the service at that time. Now, having said that, the ridership numbers, in my view, are a direct consequence of the pandemic.
Mackenzie says it's unfortunate that the city can't meet the demands of the people who need the service, but it was reduced because of low ridership. He wants to restore faith in transit users by pushing to expand a well-traveled route. The CEO of United Way says it's frightening to see that bus services are in jeopardy.
It's going to hurt people that really need it.
She says many riders are students and essential workers. They've told her that fares are high and services are unreliable, but public transit is a fundamental need and offers self-sufficiency to those without a vehicle.
I think it's really important that as a community, we put pressure on all levels of government to support this, that this is, we are in a pandemic and we need to make sure that the people who are, most affected are going to get some level of support so that they can continue to work and get to their medical appointments and get groceries.
She says she understands the city is facing financial challenges, but bus service will be needed post-pandemic. Councillor Mackenzie agrees. City Council is meeting on Monday to discuss the proposed budget and the future of Transit Windsor. Tamina Aziz, CBC News, Windsor.
The board, which oversees Windsor Police, will allow an Edmonton man to use the service's logo on his woodworking items, just so long as they don't include controversial symbols and imagery that are featured in much of his other work. Now, this is some of the man's work posted on his Etsy page. Many of his custom creations feature the thin blue line. It's a symbol that police use to reflect that they maintained order in society. In recent months, the symbols become divisive as the Black Lives Matter movement resurged. Now, the man behind this work hoped to obtain permission from Windsor Police to use its logo on his future projects. Today, Windsor Police ruled their logo can be used, but only if it's not in conjunction with any other image.
Out of 210 use of force reports submitted, there were 298 subjects categorized within those use of force reports based on their perceived race at the time the incident had occurred.
Now, that data there was also discussed at Windsor's police board meeting today. It's new to the service this year, as mandated by the province. It breaks down the use of force incidents in 2020 by the race of individuals involved. Use of force being any time that an officer draws their gun or physically restrains an individual. Out of almost 300 individuals, 69% were white, 18% were black. The rest were primarily Indigenous or Middle Eastern. Police did clarify that there may be inaccuracies with these numbers, primarily because officers may wrongly perceive the race of individuals at the time of an incident. Despite that, these numbers will be forwarded to the province to craft future training exercises for officers. The federal government has introduced a new bill to scrap mandatory sentences for more than a dozen criminal offenses. Ottawa says compulsory terms disproportionately hit the Black community, Indigenous people, and those with addictions. The goal is to divert first-time and non-violent offenders away from the prison system. CBC's Tom Perry has the details.
First,
to Canada's Justice Minister, the numbers are striking.
Indigenous adults represent 5% of the general population, yet account for 30% of federally incarcerated inmates. And that's double what it was 20 years ago. Black inmates represent 7.2% of the federal offender population, but only 3% of the population. This is shameful.
Aiming to reduce those figures, the government today introduced Bill C-22. It would scrap mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses and some gun crimes, allow more conditional sentences to keep low-risk offenders out of prison, and require police and prosecutors in cases of simple drug possession to look at whether suspects should be charged or diverted to addictions treatment.
And I'm not talking about hardened criminals here. I'm talking about low-risk, first-time, non-violent offenders.
So I still think there's more work to be done and more reform that could be addressed in future legislation, but this is certainly an encouraging step forward.
To defense lawyers and Indigenous leaders, the government is on the right track.
I welcome today's announcements because we know there's high social costs and there's high financial costs to maintaining the status quo.
Mandatory minimum sentences will stay in place for serious crimes like murder and child sexual abuse. But for these lesser offenses, the government says it's going in a new direction, pointing out it was the previous Conservative government that brought in these measures. In a minority parliament, however, the Liberals will need the support of at least some opposition MPs to reverse that and get their bill passed. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
The average amount of snowfall this year, salt trucks and plows have been able to get the situation under control.
The most recent snowfall has generally been cleaned up. All the main roads have been cleaned for a couple of days. Residential streets were completed last night, and we continue to work through some of the bus stops and the BIA parking throughout the city. We've had the same response that we prepare for every year. Typically the preparations start the day in advance using the weather forecast. We line up our subcontractor and give them a start time for the event. Once the event starts, our trucks start to roll and we start to apply a layer of salt on the roads. And we continue to do this until the accumulation is above 1.5 inches, at which time our plows will start putting their blades down and clearing the snow on the road. It's not uncommon that a residential street could get overlooked. We do have many kilometers of road in the city. So with our contracted workforce out there, they do their best efforts, and we do track them. But it has happened on occasions where we've missed a residential street and we've had to go back to clean those up. If there is a problem or if there is a perceived issue on your road with the snow clearing, we request that you call into 311 so that problem can be registered and we can ensure that it is looked into and addressed as required.
A beloved local children's TV show clown has died.
Introducing Bozo, the world's most famous clown!
Art Servey worked as Bozo the Clown at CKLW from 1967 to 79. The building CBC Windsor works in now. After the show was canceled, Servey worked in Michigan. A Facebook post noting his death has attracted more than 100 comments from Windsorites. Many of the people are sharing childhood memories of going to watch the show in person or even being a guest on the show. He was 86. Another live look outside here as we see more of that snowfall. Colette Kennedy warned us. She was right. She always is. And she's coming up next with a look at what's happening in Windsor this weekend. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. A quick look out the window shows the snow's still falling. Is that sticking around for a while here, or?
Yeah, we're still going to be seeing this, Chris, just towards midnight, a little after, and then it's going to be tapering off, only to have flurries come back at us. So, you know, the main system is well to the south of us. I'm going to show you that in just a moment, but still, we're getting some of the effects, and we'll get rid of the light snow, like I say, after midnight, but into tomorrow afternoon, even some flurries coming back in our skies. Not for everyone, but still, they'll be there. Rising temperatures, though, we're going to be seeing that, the trend over the next few days, even into next week. And then Sunday night, with the next system moving in, mostly it looks like because of the timing overnight into the morning hours, wet snow, but it may be a little bit of mix in there with some drizzle because, again, getting up there near the freezing marker just above with those temperatures. For now, still a little on the cooler side. We have -5, Leamington as well coming in at that, and Chatham-Kent too, and feeling like -11, -12 with that wind chill. You see here on the radar the imagery here of some of that light snow. It's kind of intermittent, but as it fills in and comes back. But like I said, the main system is actually well to the south of us. So it's coming through the Carolinas there, but it's still having that impact. There's also some lake effect, and so there are some advisories a little bit further east. So over towards the west end of Lake Ontario, we don't have any here. There, they're looking at closer to 15 centimeters. We're in the much lesser zone there, closer to that 5 altogether. And you know, it's going to be ending, like I said, so we've only got a few more hours yet here to be adding to that accumulation. I want to take you in. You see kind of the main batch is going to be pushing away. There it is, midnight. And then we go on from there. The clouds still linger. We could see a few breaks early in the day, and then some of these streamers setting up, some of the lake effects. So that's why I say not everyone will get into the flurries, but when you do, you see some reduced visibility and have some bursts there coming back towards the afternoon hours. Saturday is going to be variable. Start off with cloud, get some sunny breaks, more cloud cover, then coming back in, but we'll get some sunshine in there. And just having a look, this is additional. We could see another 2 to 3. Really, I don't think we're even going to get that coming out of it as it moves away. Just a quick look there, too. Look at those overnight lows, Chris, how those are going to be changing as we go into next week.
I'm no good at patterns, but I think 2, 4, and then does it go 8 or does it go 6? But I know it's positive, right?
No, but still, yes, it is that milder air. There's cold air is going to come back, but let's not go there yet.
No, that's for another problem another day. Thanks, Ms. Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, speaking of the cold temperatures, NASA has made a successful mission that goes beyond our world. We'll show you where next. Facebook looked a lot different for users in Australia for a few hours today. The company briefly made good on a threat to block Australians from viewing and sharing news content on the site as it continues a showdown with the government over compensation for news companies. Here's how some Australians reacted.
I do use Facebook. It seems to be a catch-all, and I can get all of my news in the one spot, so it will really impact me.
People will just revolt against it. Like, honestly, especially the younger generation.
Maybe it'll mean that people just read less news and read more social media opinions on posts.
Now, today's move by the social media giant comes as Australian politicians are pushing through legislation that will require companies like Facebook and Google to pay news outlets for some content. A successful mission to Mars today for NASA after a 7-month voyage from Earth.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars.
That was the scene at Mission Control in California just moments after the Perseverance rover landed safely on the red planet. Traveled more than 480 million kilometers, and the $3 billion mission came down to a risky all-or-nothing landing. Now here's a look at some of the first images of the spacecraft sent back to Earth. No filters on those, we don't think. This is NASA's 5th rover to safely land on Mars, and it marks the riskiest step so far in the quest to gather rock and soil samples to search for signs of life. All of us staying home for most of the year, and then you have those iconic missions. It's certainly a little bit of a contrast. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you go on our Instagram page, we had a live event programmed for tomorrow, and you'll be able to hear how musicians have been handling some of this lockdown during the year. The Rick Mercer Report, that's up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.